Miguel Andrade was everything one would expect from the heir to a multi-million-dollar fortune. His life was filled with extravagant parties, sophisticated dinners at exclusive restaurants, trips to exotic places, and invitations to social events where his name and face were always recognized. The newspapers described him as the most eligible bachelor in the country, and those around him treated him with a mixture of admiration and envy. But amidst all the luxury and glamour, there was something missing in his life, something that no amount of money seemed able to fill. In the past few months, Miguel had started feeling a growing emptiness that seemed to get bigger every day. He looked at the people around him, friends, admirers, even some family members, and wondered if anyone truly cared about him. They were all attracted by the glow of his lifestyle, by the status he represented. How many times after hearing a fake laugh or receiving an empty compliment, had he caught himself thinking, would they love me if I had nothing to offer? The answer always seemed to be a bitter no. One night, after one of those endless luxury parties, Miguel was sitting on his balcony, looking out at the city lights below his imposing mansion. A feeling of loneliness washed over him like a wave. The alcohol in his blood only intensified the emptiness inside him. He remembered a humble couple he had seen earlier that day, walking hand in hand through the park, laughing as if nothing else in the world mattered besides each other. That vision had awakened something in him that had been dormant for a long time, a genuine desire to love and be truly loved, without filters, without layers of superficiality. It was then that he decided to do something that few would have the courage to do. He wanted to distance himself from that life full of conveniences and lies, from people who approached him for the wrong reasons. He wanted to find someone who loved Miguel, the real man, with all his flaws and vulnerabilities, and not Miguel, the millionaire who could provide a dream life. For that, he would have to strip away everything that had defined him until then. And so, an idea formed in his mind. He would live as an ordinary person, without the shield of money, without the glamour of his last name. However, the decision was not simple. It took him weeks to plan everything. First, he found a small apartment in a lower middle-class neighborhood, a place that was miles away from the mansion he used to call home. It was a modest building with thin walls and windows that creaked with every strong gust of wind. The view was not spectacular. It was just a busy street, full of life and noise. However, there was something about that setting that charmed him. It was real, authentic, without masks. Miguel no longer had to pretend there. Next, he got rid of everything that could suggest his true identity. He put his expensive watches and jewelry in a safe. He put aside his tailored suits and adopted simple clothes, bought from local thrift shops, which barely attracted any attention. He would need a job because he wanted to live with the bare minimum, to really feel inserted in that reality. He found a job at a small cafe. It wasn't the most glamorous job in the world. In fact, it was the opposite. He would spend most of his days cleaning tables, serving coffee, taking orders, and dealing with customers who were often rude or indifferent. But he was determined. The first days were tough. Waking up early to take public transportation was new to him, and the work routine was exhausting. His feet hurt after hours of standing, his hands grew rough, and the forced smile he had to give customers left him tired in a way he hadn't thought possible. However, there was also a strange satisfaction in living that reality. When he received his paycheck, modest but earned through his own effort, he felt a sense of accomplishment that he had never experienced with the millions in his bank account. Every penny was deserved, the fruit of his sweat. Moreover, Miguel began to notice the people around him. He observed the neighbors in the building, the other workers at the cafe, the children running through the street. No one there knew who he was. For all intents and purposes, he was just another guy trying to live his life, and that liberated him. For the first time, he didn't have to worry about the expectations of others or about maintaining appearances. He was just living, in a simple and unpretentious way. Despite the hardship, Miguel felt he was on the right path. What he wanted more than anything was to meet someone who would truly love him. He sought what he had seen in the couple at the park, an unselfish love, a relationship where smiles were not forced and words were not calculated. And even though, deep down, he knew it wouldn't be easy, he was willing to take the risk. He just didn't know that in this new world he was entering, he would find not only love, but also dangers and secrets that would test his courage and his ability to face the truth about himself and others. After a few weeks living his new routine, Miguel started getting used to the simple life. Despite the daily exhaustion, he felt lighter, less pressured. The cafe where he worked was a small place, with worn-out wooden tables and a constant aroma of freshly ground coffee hanging in the air. It was frequented by people from the neighborhood, local workers, hurried students, and lonely elderly folks who came to enjoy a hot cup and chat with the attendants. Miguel adapted to it. His life had become predictable, and he was starting to like it. It was on a Thursday afternoon, when the cafe was a bit quieter, that Miguel had his first encounter with Ana. She came in pushing an old bicycle, the chains squeaking as she approached the counter. She looked visibly tired, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail, with an expression of exhaustion on her face. Miguel, curious, looked at her for a moment before picking up his notepad and walking to the counter. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" he asked, offering a friendly smile. Ana looked up, and upon seeing Miguel's sincere face, something in her posture seemed to relax slightly. It looked like she hadn't been expecting to find kindness in such a difficult afternoon. "A black coffee, please," she replied, taking a few coins out of her pocket and placing them on the counter, counting slowly, as if each penny was precious. Miguel noticed her tired look and her slightly trembling hands, as if she had been through something stressful. He quickly prepared the coffee and set it in front of her, but realized the coins weren't enough to pay for it. She looked at the total and bit her lip, her frustration evident. "Oh," Anna murmured, turning her gaze to the counter. I I don't think I can pay for it today." Miguel looked at her for a moment and, in an impulse he couldn't quite explain, took some change out of his own pocket to complete the amount, saying with a smile, "It's okay. This one's on me. You look like you could use a break." Anna looked surprised, her eyes filling with a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. She raised her gaze and looked at him for a few seconds, as if trying to evaluate the sincerity behind Miguel's gesture. "Thank you. I really need a coffee," she said, giving a small smile. "I'm Miguel, by the way," he said, trying to keep the tone light. "Ana," she replied, nodding slightly. She took the coffee to one of the tables in the corner and sat there, drinking slowly while trying to relax. Miguel watched discreetly, curious about this girl. She seemed to be going through something that deeply pressured her, and he found himself wondering what her story was. For the first time in weeks, Miguel felt intrigued by someone there. There was something about Ana, perhaps her momentary fragility mixed with an underlying strength, that caught his attention. In the days that followed, Ana returned to the cafe several times, always discreet, with her bicycle that seemed older and more worn each time. Sometimes she just had a quick coffee before leaving. Other times she sat at a table for longer, reading a book or fiddling with her phone. With each visit, Miguel tried to get closer, exchanging brief words, offering small kindnesses, trying to make her feel comfortable there. On one of those encounters, Anna finally opened up a little about her life. She was taking care of her sick mother, a task that consumed almost all her time and resources. She explained that her mother had a degenerative illness and that all the money she earned working as an assistant in an office went to medical care. Anna's life was a succession of responsibilities and difficulties, something Miguel had never experienced until then. As they talked, Miguel discovered that Ana was incredibly strong, someone who never complained about her situation and did whatever was necessary to care for those she loved. But there was something else in her stories. The way she spoke about injustices and social inequalities, always with a certain bitterness, revealed a side of her that did not like the privileged elite. During one of their conversations, when a news report about some scandal involving millionaires appeared on the cafe TV, she made a comment that caught Miguel's attention. "These people never care about others, do they? They live in their bubbles, thinking the world revolves around their money," Ana said, shaking her head in disapproval. "They will never understand what it means to truly fight for something." Miguel tried to hide his discomfort at the comment. It was clear that Ana had a deep disdain for rich people, something that seemed to stem from past experiences. This raised a red flag for Miguel. He was there, pretending to be someone simple, when in fact he was part of the exact group she despised. Every day spent with Ana made Miguel feel more attracted to her. It wasn't just Ana's natural beauty, but her strength and determination, her authenticity. He saw in her everything he had always wanted to find. Someone who fought, someone who wasn't caught up in superficialities. But at the same time, with each new meeting, Miguel found himself sinking deeper into his own lie. He began to wonder if he would ever have the courage to tell her the truth, and more importantly, if Anna would still see him the same way once she knew who he really was. Meanwhile, there was also something mysterious about Anna. She spoke about her past vaguely, and there was a sadness that appeared in her eyes at certain moments, as if she were hiding something deeper. Miguel wanted to know more, but he felt it was something she wasn't ready to share. There was a mystery surrounding her that made him even more intrigued. He knew Anna was not just a hardworking girl. There was a layer there, a hidden story she didn't want to reveal. Amidst all these doubts and conflicts, Miguel realized that, for the first time, he was feeling something real for someone. It wasn't like the empty relationships he had had before, based on appearances and conveniences. Anna had no idea who he really was, and perhaps because of that, every smile, every gesture of kindness from her felt more genuine and valuable. However, the shadow of the truth hung over him, and each passing day, the tension of hiding his real identity grew stronger. Miguel knew he was treading dangerous ground, where love and lies intertwined in a way that could ultimately destroy everything he was trying to build. On the other hand, Anna began to notice that there was something different about Miguel. He didn't seem like the other guys she had met, and his presence made her days a little less heavy. However, her past still weighed on her, and there was something in the way Miguel looked at her, something that made her question whether he was hiding something too. Thus, amid this growing connection and the hidden secrets of both, a feeling began to bloom. Something delicate but carrying the promise of both happiness and danger. Days passed and Miguel and Anna continued to meet at the small cafe. What had started as a casual and uncertain relationship was slowly transforming into something more significant. Miguel, increasingly captivated by Anna, felt that the moments they shared were the most valuable parts of his day. The conversations about life, the small gestures of care, the occasional laughter, all of this became a source of joy and a constant reminder of what he truly sought, something real and honest. But along with the joy Anna brought to his life, there also grew within him a constant, suffocating fear, the fear of being found out. With every conversation, with every word Anna said about her aversion to the rich and social injustices, Miguel felt the weight of his lie grow heavier. He was getting closer to her with a hidden truth that, if revealed, could destroy everything they were building. One morning, Anna arrived at the cafe looking tired, but with a soft smile on her lips when she saw Miguel at the counter. She approached and he could feel warmth blooming in his chest. She had that effect on him. A simple smile was enough to transform his day. "Hey, Miguel, I came to have my breakfast with you today," she said, leaning her rusty bike against the wall and approaching the counter. "It's always a pleasure, Anna." "What would you like today?" he replied, trying to keep the tone casual, though his voice always sounded a little softer when he spoke to her. As he prepared the coffee, Anna told him about a recent problem at her office job. She was receiving less money than expected, and her mother's medical bills were piling up. Miguel felt powerless, wanting more than anything to help her. His instinct was to offer money, to solve it the way he always had before, but he couldn't. Not only because that would mean revealing his true identity, but also because he knew Anna would never accept something like that. She was independent, proud, and opposed to anything that looked like charity. That was one of the reasons why he was falling in love with her, but also a barrier that left him frustrated. Even so, he did what he could. He listened patiently, offered simple advice, and tried to make the time they spent together light. He knew he couldn't solve Anna's problems in the way he was used to, but he wanted to be the kind of support she needed, someone who would be there for her no matter what. Their feelings for each other began to intensify. After a long and difficult shift at the cafe, Miguel was finishing up cleaning the place, almost at closing time, when Anna showed up at the door. She had an expression that mixed exhaustion and relief. She said she needed to talk, and he invited her to sit down. They sat there in the dimly lit cafe, while Anna opened up about how exhausting her life had become, the constant pressure and the fears she carried. For the first time, she allowed herself to be vulnerable in front of him. Sometimes I feel like no matter how hard I try, it's never enough. There's always something missing, and it feels like the world is always demanding more from me, without giving me time to breathe, Anna said, her voice breaking slightly at the end. Miguel didn't reply immediately. He leaned forward, touched her hand gently, and in a low, sincere voice said, "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, Anna. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with feeling like you need help sometimes. We all do." Anna looked at him, and for a moment, Miguel saw her eyes well up. She smiled timidly, a smile full of sadness, but also gratitude. It was a moment of deep connection, and Miguel knew that he was becoming more and more attached to her. At the same time, guilt and fear grew in his chest like a shadow. As time went on, the two began spending more time together outside of the cafe. Miguel made up excuses to meet Anna, offering help with her groceries or offering to fix her bike, which always seemed to be breaking down. Once he took her to the park, the same one where he had seen that simple couple months earlier, and they sat under a tree, talking and laughing. In that moment, Miguel felt like any other ordinary person, without the burden of his true identity. He felt happy. However, the tension was growing silently. As Miguel's feelings deepened, the lie about his identity became a barrier that was increasingly difficult to overcome. He knew that sooner or later he would have to tell her the truth, but the fear of losing Anna paralyzed him. She had made it clear so many times how much she despised wealthy people and how she did not trust them. With every new comment, Miguel felt the distance growing between who he wanted to be for her and who he really was. At the same time, Miguel began to realize that something strange was happening around him. In the past few days, he had the feeling that he was being watched. Once, while on his way to his apartment, he noticed a figure in a parked car, seemingly watching him from a distance. Another time, he felt someone following him, but when he turned around, there was no one there. At first, he thought it was just paranoia, the result of his guilt and fear. But gradually, he began to wonder if someone had discovered his true identity and was just waiting for the right moment to reveal it. The suspense was intensifying. Miguel was not only worried about being honest with Anna, but was now also beginning to fear being exposed. He knew that if his true identity was revealed the wrong way, it would destroy any chance he still had with Anna. This constant pressure began to affect his behavior. He became more reserved. His smiles sometimes seemed forced, and Anna began to notice. "Are you okay, Miguel? You seem distant," Anna asked one of those days while they were sitting together at the cafe after a shift. Miguel tried to change the subject but realized it was hard to hide something from Anna when she looked at him that way, with a deep look trying to understand what he was feeling. He forced a smile and shook his head. "I'm fine, Anna. Just tired, I guess," he said, knowing it was only half true. No matter how much Miguel tried to ignore it, the reality was that he was living a divided life. On one side, the ordinary man he wanted to be, with Anna, and on the other, the millionaire heir who still existed, hidden but increasingly difficult to suppress. The tension between these two sides of his life was becoming unbearable, and he knew that sooner or later he would have to make a choice that could either bring him everything he always wanted or destroy everything he had started to build. And then there was Anna, who, unknowingly, also carried her own mysteries. Miguel noticed how reserved she was when it came to talking about her past. She opened up about her current difficulties but skillfully avoided any mention of her childhood or earlier years. On one occasion, when Miguel tried to ask about her family beyond her mother, Anna quickly diverted the conversation. It was clear that there was something painful there, something she did not want to revisit. With every unspoken secret, Miguel and Anna grew closer and yet further apart, building a relationship on unstable ground full of traps. Miguel knew that their love was deepening, but that the roots were not secure as they grew over secrets and fears. He just didn't know that soon all these secrets would come to light, and he would have to deal with the consequences of his choices, and with the surprises Anna also had hidden. The days continued to pass, building up emotions and tensions. Miguel felt that he was approaching a critical point. He and Anna were closer than ever, but the lie about his identity was becoming unbearable. It was like a constant weight on his shoulders, a voice whispering with every happy moment he shared with her, reminding him that it was all based on something false. The lie was behind every smile he gave, every word of affection. With each look they exchanged, Miguel knew that the risk of losing Ana was increasing. One of those afternoons, Ana invited Miguel over for dinner at her apartment. She seemed excited, as if she were preparing for something special. Miguel was anxious but also hopeful about the surprise invitation. They always met in public places or at the cafe, so this invitation was an important step, an indication that Ana trusted him and wanted to bring him deeper into her life. He couldn't deny that this filled his heart with joy, even as guilt consumed him at the same time. That night, Miguel went to Ana's apartment, carrying a small flower he had bought from a street vendor. He knew it wasn't anything grand, but it was sincere, and that seemed to be the most important thing at that moment. Ana opened the door and welcomed him with a warm smile, the smell of food cooking on the stove filling the air. Anna's apartment was small and simple but cozy, filled with little details that revealed her personality. Old photographs, neatly arranged books, a few plants struggling to survive. "You brought flowers," Anna said, surprised, taking the flower from Miguel's hand and placing it in a small vase. "That's so thoughtful. Thank you, Miguel. I wanted to bring you something since you're putting so much effort into making dinner," he said, smiling. Ana was radiant that night, and as they ate dinner, Miguel realized how perfect that night was. They laughed and talked about things related to work and forgot about the difficulties of life for a while. Ana even teased Miguel about the strange way he arranged the cutlery, and he just rolled his eyes, laughing along. It was a moment so simple and real that, for a brief second, Miguel completely forgot the lie he was maintaining. After dinner, Ana led him to her small balcony. The city lights glowed in the distance, and the cool night breeze brought a rare sense of peace. They stood side by side in silence, just enjoying the view in each other's company. Miguel felt an increasing urge to hold Ana's hand, to be even closer to her, but he knew that before anything else, he needed to be honest. It was at that moment that Ana looked at him and broke the silence with a soft voice. "Miguel, I've never been this close to anyone like I am with you," she began, her gaze serious and vulnerable. "I trust you in a way that I don't trust almost anyone." Miguel's heart sank. Every word she spoke was a reminder of how much he was deceiving her, how much he was throwing away the trust she had placed in him. This was the cue he needed. He felt he couldn't hide the truth anymore. Decided, he took a deep breath and with a low voice interrupted Ana. "Ana, I need to tell you something. Something very important," he began, trying to find the right words. Ana looked at him with curiosity and a hint of concern. "What is it, Miguel?" she asked, visibly intrigued. Miguel looked away to the horizon, feeling the weight of what he was about to do. He knew there was no turning back after this, but he couldn't live with the lie any longer. "I haven't been completely honest with you," he said, his voice faltering for a moment. I, I'm not exactly who you think I am. Actually, He hesitated for a second, but then forced the words out. "I'm much more than just a cafe worker. I'm a millionaire, Ana. I actually come from a very wealthy family." The silence that followed Miguel's words felt eternal. Ana's face slowly changed from shock to disbelief and then to a deep expression of hurt. She stepped away from him, as if needing physical distance to process what she was hearing. You're, you're telling me you've been lying to me this whole time?" Her voice was low, incredulous, almost a whisper. "Ana, I swear, I never meant to deceive you. I just wanted someone to like me for who I am, without the money, without all that. And you were that person. You are that person. I was just afraid of losing you if you knew." Miguel tried to explain, but his words sounded insufficient, small. Ana's eyes were filled with tears, and her expression was one of disappointment. "So all this time, you were lying to me? Pretending to be an ordinary person when, in reality, you're exactly what I despise?" She shook her head in disbelief. "You made me trust you, Miguel. You lied to me, and not just about anything. You lied about who you really are." Miguel felt the despair growing inside him. He tried to step closer, but Ana took another step back. "Don't come near me, Miguel." Her voice was cold now, broken. "I can't deal with this. I thought you were different, but you just deceived me. Anna turned and went back into her apartment, leaving Miguel alone on the balcony, staring out at the city that seemed so distant and indifferent. The world around him felt dark, and for the first time, he truly felt groundless. He had lost Anna. Everything he feared had happened, and all because he didn't have the courage to be honest from the beginning. Miguel left her apartment in silence, his hands trembling and his heart shattered. As he descended the stairs, he heard the door close behind him, and it sounded like a definitive ending. He knew he would have to deal with the consequences of his actions, but nothing could have prepared him for the real pain of losing Anna. He walked the streets of the neighborhood that he was beginning to consider home, feeling lonelier than ever. But before he could process all the pain, something happened. On his way back to his apartment, Miguel once again felt like he was being followed. This time, the figure did not hide when he turned around. A tall, sturdy man was watching him from a distance, as if waiting for Miguel. "Hey, you there!" Miguel shouted, in a desperate impulse to confront whatever was happening. The man didn't respond. He just turned and quickly walked away, disappearing into the dark alleys before Miguel could catch up. That confirmed Miguel's worst fears. Someone knew who he was. And now more than ever, he found himself vulnerable. When he arrived at his apartment, Miguel sat on the floor, his head in his hands. He had lost Anna, and now he felt like he was losing control of everything around him. Someone was after him. Someone knew about his identity. And worse, he feared that Anna might be involved in it all. As he lay down, unable to sleep, Miguel knew that the lie he had tried so hard to maintain was now out of his control. Anna despised him, and an unknown threat was lurking. The truth he had hidden was not just an obstacle to love. It was an open door to real danger, a danger he could not fully understand yet, but that he knew was drawing closer. He just had no idea what was truly at stake, and that the worst was yet to come. After the fateful night when Miguel revealed his true identity, the following days were filled with an almost unbearable emptiness. He couldn't sleep, barely managed to eat, and felt as if his life had completely lost direction. The image of Anna's disappointed look wouldn't leave his mind. The weight of his choice crushed him, and he feared he'd never have the chance to truly explain his motives. But beyond all that, there was a sense of danger in the air that he couldn't ignore. Someone was after him, someone who knew who he really was. This mystery kept him in a constant state of alert, and his only concern was that somehow Anna could get caught up in it. Miguel tried to get close to her in the days that followed, but Anna refused to respond to his messages or answer his calls. He even went to her apartment door, but Anna wouldn't let him in. She had completely closed herself off, creating an impenetrable wall between them. Miguel didn't blame her. He knew he had lied, knew he had destroyed the trust she had placed in him. Still, he couldn't bring himself to give up on her. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while Miguel was in his apartment, he heard a knock at the door. When he opened it, he was surprised to see Anna standing there. She was visibly tired, and there was an expression of uncertainty on her face. Her eyes were swollen, as if she'd been crying a lot, but there was also a determination in her eyes that Miguel couldn't ignore. "Anna," Miguel started, not knowing what to say. She raised her hand, signaling for him to be silent. She took a deep breath, as if gathering all the strength she had. "I'm not here because I've forgiven you, Miguel. I'm not ready for that. I'm still very hurt. But there's something you need to know." Her voice was firm, despite the emotion showing through. "I haven't been completely honest with you either. And maybe if we're going to face this once and for all, you need to know my side of the story." Miguel let her in, and they both sat down in the small living room of the apartment. Anna hesitated for a moment, but then began to speak, her voice carrying a deep sadness that Miguel had never heard before. "I grew up in a wealthy family. My parents were successful entrepreneurs, and for a while we had a good life, full of comfort. But things fell apart quickly when I was a teenager." She paused for a moment, looking at her hands as if the memories were too painful to face. "My father was involved in business dealings that were not as clean as he made us believe," Anna continued, her voice trembling. "It turned out that he was involved in a major corruption and money laundering scheme. Everything came to light when I was 16. Our family became the center of a huge scandal. Overnight, we lost everything. My father was arrested, my mother fell into a deep depression, and she was never the same again. That's why she got sick. The stress, the shame, it all ended up destroying her health. She sighed, and Miguel felt his heart ache as he listened to her. He could see the pain in Anna's eyes, the anger and disappointment she had carried for so long. When I say I hate rich people, it's not just because they're privileged. It's because I've seen up close what greed can do. I saw how money can destroy lives, how my family was broken apart because of it. Anna looked directly at Miguel, her voice trembling. And when I found out that you are also part of that world, part of that same type of privilege and deceit, I felt like everything was repeating itself, like I was being deceived again, just like my father did with my mother and me. Miguel remained silent, trying to process everything she had said. He had never imagined that Anna carried such a heavy burden, that she too had faced a life full of secrets and lies. Now he understood why she was so distrustful, why she refused to trust those who had money. She had been betrayed in the worst way possible by someone who was supposed to protect her. Anna, I'm so sorry, Miguel said, his voice low, full of guilt and compassion. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted you to feel deceived like this. All I wanted was to find someone who would see me for who I am, without the money, without the titles. And I know I did it the wrong way. I made a mistake, but my feelings for you are real. Anna looked away, tears streaming down her face. She didn't answer immediately, but finally nodded. I don't know if I can trust you, Miguel. I don't know if I ever will, but she hesitated, taking a deep breath. I'm here because beyond all this, there's something else I need to tell you. I think you're in danger. Miguel frowned, his heart beginning to race. In danger? What do you mean? Anna wiped her tears and explained. Remember when I told you about the corruption scheme my father was involved in? He didn't act alone. There were other people involved, and some of them were never caught. They threatened our family, and for a long time, we had to live in fear. I believe those people are still out there, and recently I've noticed someone following my steps, and now it seems they are following you too. Miguel was in shock. The pieces started to come together in his mind. The strange men, the feeling of being followed. It wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just guilt over the lie he had told. There really was someone watching, someone who perhaps wanted something from him, or worse, wanted to use Anna to achieve their own goals. Anna looked at him, her expression serious but full of determination. I can't just stand by and let this happen again. I already lost my family once to these men, and I'm not going to let them hurt anyone else I care about, she said, her voice growing stronger. I can't forgive you right now, but I also can't ignore the fact that maybe we need to face this together. Miguel nodded, feeling a mix of fear and relief. Finally, he knew what was going on. There was a real threat, something that could affect both him and Anna. And for the first time in weeks, they were facing the truth, without masks, without lies. They spent the next few hours discussing what they could do. Anna explained that she had seen a man near her building several times, and Miguel told her about his own experiences, the figures following him through the streets. Both realized they were being watched, and it was only a matter of time before they were confronted directly. They needed a plan, something that could protect them. The conversation was long, but it was also a moment of reconnection. It wasn't exactly the reconciliation Miguel wanted. There was still an emotional distance between them, a barrier built by disappointment and pain. But now there was also an alliance, a shared purpose. They had something they needed to protect, and that brought them closer again, albeit cautiously. That night, Anna left Miguel's apartment with a serious expression, but less desperate. Miguel watched her leave, feeling a renewed hope mixed with fear. He knew the danger was real, but he also knew that finally he wasn't alone anymore. As the day broke, Miguel prepared for what lay ahead. He knew that what they would face wouldn't be easy, that the dangers were real, and that his past mistakes would come at a high price. But this time, he was determined not to let fear or lies dominate him. He would protect Anna and face whoever was trying to hurt them. With this determination, he felt closer to the truth than ever before. His love for Anna was still there, intact, but now it was also mixed with the need to protect her, to ensure she wouldn't suffer because of other people's wrong choices. And maybe after all of this, if they emerged victorious, he could have a new chance to prove to Anna that his love was real. This time without lies, without masks, just him, in the most authentic and vulnerable way possible. In the days that followed, Miguel and Anna maintained a fragile alliance. Their connection now wasn't based on romance and growing feelings, but rather on the need to face a common threat. They were united by fear and the determination to protect each other. And although it wasn't the scenario Miguel had imagined for his relationship with Anna, it was real, it was true, and he clung to it as an anchor to avoid sinking into guilt and despair. Together, they began to devise a plan. They decided that they couldn't keep living in fear. They needed to find out who was following them and what they wanted. Miguel knew he couldn't rely on the financial resources he had kept hidden. If the people after them had any connection to Anna's father's shady past, showing his wealth would only make him an easier target. They would need to be careful. They would need to trust each other. One night, after a day full of tension and a constant feeling of being watched, Miguel and Anna finally had a concrete lead. While walking through the neighborhood, they noticed a black car parked at the corner, the same one Anna had seen near her home a few weeks earlier. The driver, an impassive-looking man, seemed to be watching them from a distance, and when Miguel decided to confront him, the car sped off, disappearing quickly down the streets. Anna grabbed Miguel's arm and stopped him from running after the car. "We can't be reckless, Miguel. They're watching us. If we're careless, we could make things worse," she said, looking worried. "But we can't keep living like this, Anna. We need to know who they are and what they want," Miguel replied, frustration evident in his voice. Anna looked around. The street was nearly empty, and the cold night breeze brought an air of urgency. They needed help, someone who could help them understand what they were dealing with. That was when Anna had an idea. "I think I know someone who can help us figure out what's happening," she said, with hesitation in her voice. Miguel looked at her, intrigued. "Who?" "An old acquaintance of my father's. He was one of the few who wasn't involved in the dirty business. After everything happened, he helped us escape and protect ourselves. I think he's still around, and he might be able to help us find out who's following us." Miguel nodded, having no alternative but to trust Anna's suggestion. They arranged to meet this acquaintance the next day, in a safe place. Anna was nervous, and Miguel knew that this meeting would also bring back difficult memories for her. It was a return to the past, a past she had tried to forget. On the appointed day, Miguel and Anna went to the meeting place, the house of an old friend of her family named Mr. Oliveira. The house was in an old neighborhood of the city, a small, discreet building surrounded by trees. They knocked on the door, and an elderly man with white hair and a tired look answered. He recognized Anna immediately, and his expression was one of surprise and concern. "Anna, what are you doing here, dear? I thought you wanted nothing more to do with this past," said Mr. Oliveira, leading them inside. Anna sat down in an armchair and quickly explained the situation, the men following them, the constant fear, and the connection to her family's past. Mr. Oliveira listened attentively, his expression growing more serious as she detailed the events. When Anna finished, he sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I feared this day would come. These people, your father's partners, Anna, they were never caught. Some of them became very dangerous and never stopped looking for ways to recover what they lost. And if they're after you, it's because they think you have something they want." Miguel looked at Anna, confused. "Something they want? What could you possibly have that these people still desire?" Mr. Oliveira looked at Anna, as if encouraging her to speak. Anna hesitated for a moment, then finally turned to Miguel. "My father, before he was arrested, hid information about the corruption scheme. He knew that if he was caught, he'd still need a way to protect my mother and me. So he kept documents that incriminated others involved. Names, bank accounts, evidence. I never knew where he hid them, but I think they believe I have some clue about it." Miguel felt the weight of the revelation. Now everything made sense. The threats, the men following them. They were after the evidence, and they believed Anna knew where it was. It was a dangerous game, and Miguel knew that if they didn't act quickly, they could end up in an inescapable situation. Mr. Oliveira offered them shelter for a few hours, and it was there in the silence of that small house that Miguel and Ana finally had a moment of genuine connection. Sitting side by side, surrounded by the dim light, Miguel took Ana's hand, and she didn't pull away. "I don't know how this is all going to end, but I'm here for you, Ana. I won't let you face this alone," Miguel said, looking into her eyes. Ana nodded, her defenses dropping a little. She knew Miguel was being sincere. The fear was still there, and distrust still existed. But in that moment, the vulnerability of both of them connected them in a unique way. They were two human beings facing an unknown enemy, united by pain and the desire to overcome everything together. The next day, with Mr. Oliveira's help, Miguel and Ana managed to get a lead on where the documents could be. It was an old warehouse owned by Ana's father, located on the outskirts of the city. It was risky, but they needed to go there. They decided to do it together. Miguel would not leave Ana alone, no matter what. They arrived at the warehouse at night when the city was quieter. The place was abandoned, a dark and cold environment full of boxes and shadows that seemed to move. Miguel's heart raced, fear of something going wrong consuming him. Ana was tense but determined. They walked through the warehouse, rummaging through old boxes, looking for anything that might be a clue. It was then, in the back of one of the rooms, that Ana found a small metal box hidden behind a pile of old books. "Here it is," she said, holding the box with trembling hands. Before they could open the box, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Miguel and Ana exchanged glances, their hearts pounding. They were not alone. Suddenly, three men emerged from the shadows, armed and with cold expressions. The leader of the men, a tall guy with short hair, pointed at Ana. "Give us the box, Ana. Enough running," he said, his voice full of menace. Miguel instinctively stepped in front of Ana, his body tense, ready to protect her at any cost. "You're not going to hurt her?" he said, his voice firm despite the fear. Ana held on to the box tightly, her eyes fixed on the men before her. She knew those documents were their only chance of getting rid of these people. With courage, she lifted the box, keeping it firmly in her hands. "You will never come after me or my mother again. If you come near us, this evidence will go straight to the police," she said, her voice filled with a strength Miguel had never heard before. The leader of the men stayed silent for a moment, assessing the situation. Finally, he lowered his gun and gestured to the others. "Let's go," he said, his eyes still locked on Ana. "But no, this isn't over." The men disappeared into the darkness, leaving Ana and Miguel there, still tense, their hearts racing uncontrollably. When they were finally alone, Ana fell to her knees exhausted, and Miguel caught her, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You were amazing, Ana," he said, his voice full of emotion. Ana looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I never would have done this without you, Miguel," she said. And for the first time since it all started, she smiled. In that moment, Miguel knew that the barriers between them were beginning to break down. Trust was being reborn, not through words, but through the actions that proved who they truly were. They had faced danger together, supported and protected each other. Now there were no more secrets, only the raw truth, and that was enough. In the days that followed, Miguel and Ana turned the documents over to the police, ensuring that the men who had been after them would finally be investigated and punished. The threat still lingered, but now there was hope. Ana returned to caring for her mother, and Miguel stayed by her side, supporting her every step of the way. Slowly, their relationship began to flourish once more, a relationship based on truth, trust, and a shared experience that had united them in an unbreakable way. Their love wasn't perfect. They still had differences. There were still hurts that needed to be healed. But they were willing to face it all together. They had learned that true love is not one without problems, but rather one in which, despite the difficulties, two people choose to support each other, to be vulnerable, and to trust one another. And with that, Miguel and Ana were finally able to give their relationship a new beginning. A beginning free of secrets, with a promise of honesty and companionship. Miguel and Ana's story didn't end with a perfect conclusion, but rather with a new beginning full of hope. They had been put to the test, faced their fears, and truly discovered each other. And with that, they were finally ready to build a love that was real, deep, and able to overcome any obstacle. If you were moved by Miguel and Anna's journey, we have many other stories that will capture your attention and touch your heart. Our channel is full of plots full of drama, suspense, overcoming, and life lessons that you won't want to miss. Each story features characters facing intense dilemmas, real challenges, and moments that make us reflect on what really matters in life. Don't be left out. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to be the first to follow each new story. Share this video with your friends and family so they can also be part of this community full of emotions. Come with us on this journey of unforgettable and inspiring stories.